thank you for the introduction, Molly. My name is Akshay. I'm the Strategy and PMO Manager at the Energy Efficiency and Renewables Office of Ras Al Khaimah. Ras Al Khaimah is one of the Emirates of the UAE for the international viewers in this webinar. It's the northernmost emirate, and we are normally known for tourism. We have very beautiful beaches, very beautiful mountains, and we are a manufacturing hub of the UAE. We have a very strong industrial base here. So for this kind of a place like Ras Al Khaimah, along with the federal authorities in the UAE, when they launched and when they were preparing the energy strategy for the UAE, we were in parallel preparing our energy efficiency and renewables strategy. This is how we represent our strategy. It is geared more towards competitiveness and competitiveness of the economy that can be obtained through sustainability, cost competitiveness of the industry, of tourism, of commercial activity, cost competitiveness of the economy overall through sustainability. We do this through several programs in the strategy that address different types of energy consumption. More of our strategy is geared towards energy efficiency than renewables. I will take you through this very quickly. We have two programs, green building regulations and building retrofits, that address buildings. We have had a lot of success with these programs. We launched our green building regulations, BARGIL, in 2019, and we have more than 3,000 buildings now permitted under our green building regulations, which are more than 30% energy efficient compared to normal conventional buildings, baseline of buildings constructed before this. Our building retrofit program has addressed comprehensively, including HVAC, lighting, water heating, insulation, pumping, all kinds of energy consumption in the building, more than 50 buildings, with a pipeline of more than 200 more buildings in various stages of tendering, construction. We have our third program of energy management, which addresses high energy users, such as the government itself, and also large industrial companies. We, through this program, promote energy management practices such as energy audits, ISO 50001, and regular energy reviews and reporting to these energy users. We started with the government here, and we have also been quite successful here. In the next 2-3 years, we plan to have most of the government entities in Ras Al Khaimah certified to ISO 50001 standards. Then we have a program for efficient appliances, where we plan to promote efficient domestic appliances, air conditioners, refrigerators, washing machines, dishwashers, etc., to the public here. This program is led by the Ministry of Industry in the UAE. It is led by a federal government entity in collaboration with us. And through their body, through their agency called ESMA, they have already set up since a long time, since before our strategy, several energy efficiency standards for different appliances. And now, in partnership with them, we are promoting these appliances in Ras Al Khaimah. Programs 5 and 6 are for efficiency in civic municipal services. So street lighting, making street lighting more efficient through LED lighting, smart lighting, and then making our wastewater systems more efficient, collecting more wastewater, treating all of it, and then reusing it for irrigation, for industrial uses, for district cooling, for example, and promoting increased reuse is part of our objectives for this program. This program is managed or is led mainly by the wastewater agency of Ras Al Khaimah. Then we have the solar programs, which are quite simply to promote solar energy in Ras Al Khaimah, which I will talk about more today. We have energy from waste program led by the waste management agency in Ras Al Khaimah, which tries to look for different energy outcomes for the waste streams in Ras Al Khaimah. We have several projects under evaluation here also. Use of alternative fuel derived from waste in the industries, development of biodiesels, biogas projects also. And lastly, we have a program for efficient vehicles. This program is led by the utility company here, Etihad Water and Electricity, which is also a federal government entity, where we, together with the federal utility company, install charging stations, create standards for EV charging stations, and also we have set up an incentive program to incentivize vehicle owners to purchase electric vehicles. We have a few targets. By 2040, we target 30% energy efficiency compared to the baseline of 2017, 20% water efficiency, and 20% of our consumption being produced by renewable energy sources in Ras Al Khaimah. Today, this number is nearly zero. We have about 1 megawatt of solar capacity installed in 2018, very small. As you will see, we are making much more progress towards this target. Solar program in more detail. We conducted in 2018 a study related to the solar potential in Ras Al Khaimah to find out what is really the potential of solar, distributed solar energy. We found out that given the buildings in 2018 and the space we have on the roofs of all these buildings of different types, being the municipality of Ras Al Khaimah, we knew we had records of all these buildings, so we were able to do a citywide study, and we found out that in 2018, our distributed solar potential, considering some margins for people, for buildings who are tenanted or buildings with roofs that are not usable, considering margins of allowance for these, we have a potential of about 340 megawatt approximately. However, by 2040, given the growth of our emirate, Ras Al Khaimah is a very fast growing economy, we expect this to more than double to 750 megawatt. And therefore, given this potential, we set an ambition for distributed solar penetration of about 80% of this potential, which is 600 megawatt. And then we said, if we have a distributed solar potential of 600 megawatt, let's try to have also an ambition for utility scale solar of another 600 megawatt. And both of these together, at distributed and utility scale level, together add up to about 20% of the electricity needs of Ras Al Khaimah. And this is how we set our target to achieve these ambitions. Our focus is more on the distributed solar compared probably to other countries. We have an ambition at distributed solar equal to what we have for utility scale. This is for two reasons. One is that our strategy, coming back to our strategy, it is more for energy competitiveness. And by that I mean, sorry, I didn't bring this in. By energy competitiveness, I mean reducing the cost of energy to the final consumers. And we see that distributed solar is really what reduces that cost. Utility scale solar can ultimately reduce the cost of energy overall for an economy. But distributed solar provides the benefits of lower cost directly to the customer. So we wanted to focus more on distributed solar. And the other reason is for this balance is that Ras Al Khaimah as an emirate has a large area, but most of the space is difficult mountain terrain, which reduces the amount of open space available in Ras Al Khaimah for large gigawatt scale solar installations. Anyway, from this start, we had some discussions with the utility company in Ras Al Khaimah. The status of regulation of distributed solar is very nascent here. The utility company, which is governed by federal regulations, did not have any existing regulatory framework for distributed solar energy. This framework is now in advanced stages of being prepared. But while this is established, we agreed with the utility company to have some initial conditions for connecting distributed solar installations to the grid while a regulation is ready. So these are the conditions under which distributed solar installations can today connect to the utility in Ras Al Khaimah. Up to 10% of the total connected load is allowed, connected to medium voltage 11 kV or low voltage 415 volts. Of course, there is an application process to the utility, to Etihad Water and Electricity, for which we can provide support. The system has to be zero export to the grid for now. And use of this process to connect a solar installation means that today a customer is not eligible for other exceptional discount schemes or initiatives. Now, under these conditions, we were able to launch the development of some standard contracting templates, tendering documents to support the market in Ras Al Khaimah to take off, to grow. And with this contracting framework, we started a first tender for distributed solar installations. Now, given these connection conditions, we saw that the volume of initial installations was limited. So we did a first tender for 15 megawatt, approximately up to 15 megawatt, aggregating many different installations, 100 kilowatt, 500 kilowatt, 2 megawatt together, so that we could benefit, so that all these customers could benefit from the economies of scale, getting a price together for 10, 15 megawatt. The joint tender requested both EPC and lease prices because some of our customers wanted both options to choose from. And all the participants agreed to choose one or two optimal suppliers depending on offers received under this tender. Our office, Reem, within the municipality, facilitated this tender. So we set up agreements, MOUs, with all the participants in the tender. This included government entities, government-owned companies, completely private companies also that operate in Ras Al Khaimah. So we set up agreements with them to manage an aggregated tender process for solar installations. And we also manage for them the approval process from the utility, from within the municipality, building approvals, etc. And we launched a tender to developers and contractors. We did the evaluation and we recommended bidders for selection. Also, this process was very successful. Our tender received more than 80 pre-qualification submissions from around the world. It was an international tender. There were several bids also from Indian companies, Chinese companies. We pre-qualified out of them 21 bidders to submit final proposals. And out of the final proposals received, we selected one bidder as an empaneled bidder, which bid a prize providing 65% savings versus the tariffs, the normal utility tariffs, which was a very, very advantageous price. Following this tender, we are very advanced in this process already. We have completed the empanelment of bidders, completed the detailed proposal stage where our selected bidder goes to every site, creates a detailed design for each site, assesses the energy consumption for each customer. And now these installations have been submitted for utility approval. We expect this approval to come very soon, in a matter of weeks, following which these projects will be contracted and then executed. So we are near the end of this process. To summarize, then at the end, Ras Al Khaimah has now many opportunities for solar, given that we have just started in our journey promoting solar PV. We have many off-grid opportunities, which are a short-term priority for Ras Al Khaimah. Ras Al Khaimah has many remote locations in mountain areas where there are several plans and several short-term plans to develop, for example, mountain luxury resorts or beach resorts, camping areas, which require large capacities of off-grid power. We see close to 3 megawatts of off-grid projects in the short term, and we welcome new developers, new suppliers to participate in our tenders for these installations. Our plan for distributed solar includes additional aggregated tenders. Given that we conducted one tender last year, which we're still in the process of finalizing contracting, I would expect roughly another tender perhaps next year, depending on the demand we see from our customers, from our government, commercial, industrial customers for solar installations. Of course, this process of aggregated tenders will accelerate once there is a federal regulation on connection of distributed solar to the grid. Today, we are doing 10, 15 megawatt aggregated projects. Once there is this federal regulation, we can look at probably 50 megawatts or 100 megawatts of aggregated solar projects. We have many, huge lists of clients waiting for this to happen. And the last big opportunity I can present to you is a first utility scale project that is in the initial stages of evaluation and identification discussions with utility partners. As for our aggregated tenders, we will inform the market when this opportunity is confirmed. We'll probably have an international tender, just like a normal utility scale project. Thank you. This was my presentation. Please feel free to contact Anoop, our renewables manager, or myself for inquiries. I encourage you to visit our website for any further information. We publish many viewpoints and many pieces of regulation there. You can find all information about our programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akshay, for the kind and detailed address. One question, can you lower down the microphone to your lips area? Yeah, that'd be great.
Sorry. I hope you could hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Before we get to any on-site questions, let's review some of the pre-collected questions first. And the first question following your presentation would be your perception on distributed and especially C&I rooftop market in RAK. When the Reem office firstly conceptualized the C&I solar projects in 2016, you actually did a full study and collected the data from both the public and the private companies in the region with regards to their roof areas, their loading, and their interest to accommodate rooftop solar systems. In the meantime, I believe there is also a lot of C&I development and investment interest from a global level, either in terms of a lease model or a CapEx model. Can you introduce a bit more about the C&I development status in RAK? Is there any challenges in your opinion, or how the future looks like?
Sure, Molly. Just wanted to correct you a little bit. We did the study in 2018. 2016, the study had started on a preliminary basis. It was started, in fact, in the Investment and Development Office of Ras Al Khaimah. And then completed in 2018. Anyway, the C&I market in Ras Al Khaimah is very big. The potential is very big because it is the industrial hub of the UAE. There are huge industrial and warehouse areas just waiting for solar installation. And as you said, also rightly, there are large investors, also local investors and from overseas, that would like to invest in these kind of projects. We have seen a lot of interest. Frankly, the challenge that I see in this market is regulation. The regulation has been, I would say, lagging compared to other markets in the region. For example, Jordan, which was just presented before, or compared to Abu Dhabi or Dubai, where regulation has now allowed renewable energy installations. But we expect this to come very soon. We were in the process of consultation that the federal entities in the UAE use for setting up these regulations. So there has been already some back and forth drafts of distributed solar energy regulations. And we expect in the coming few months, a new regulatory setup for allowing these installations more broadly. So we expect this market to transform with regulation in the next few months.
Yes, very well. And as you also introduced in the presentation that the RAK municipality has a very ambitious target, 600 megawatt for distributed solar and another 600 megawatt for utility scale solar. However, in 2020, we encountered the COVID impact. There are a lot of things changed in this dynamics, and in the regional level and in the global level, a lot of governments are ramping up efforts for what we call a green recovery. Do we have similar programs in the Reem office or in RAK as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. In Ras Al Khaimah, the impact of the pandemic was surprisingly positive for sustainable energy. So the government leadership here immediately saw the need to accelerate energy efficiency programs and renewable energy programs, to reduce the impacts of any future such events, and also to take advantage of the say short-term opportunity of the pandemic. So for example, because of the pandemic last year, a lot of the schools were closed for a short time now, and a lot of the offices were closed. This gave us an opportunity, in fact, to retrofit some of these buildings that were closed in a more easy way, to audit these buildings, to retrofit them, to change their system. And it made it easier because there was no occupancy in these buildings. Normally, it becomes a hassle to retrofit, to work on existing buildings that are occupied, but this was not the case last year for a few months in the pandemic. It also gave us an opportunity to work on our energy management programs. We realized that energy management can really save us a lot of money, frankly. And the COVID pandemic really showed us how much we can save by turning off the ACs when the building is not occupied, for example. On the solar program, I would say that we continued more or less as per usual, with nearly no impact of the pandemic, no delay, nearly no changes in prices observed.
Yes, and as you mentioned, the RAK municipality would love to involve and encourage the private sector investment into the criteria. Any incentives on the table right now, whether it's a financial incentive or regulatory incentive for especially the foreign investors?
Okay, we have incentives today in Ras Al Khaimah for SMEs, new businesses in the energy sector who want to set up their office in Ras Al Khaimah. We have some business setup incentives, reduction in fees for business, for licensing, etc. here. We are also looking at promoting local businesses, localization of solar projects. We are studying still how to do this, looking at the model of Egypt, of Morocco, for localization. Saudi Arabia also has some good examples of this, but we are still studying this topic.
Right, and one more question with regards to larger scale projects. I think the projects you mentioned was in partnership with the FEWA. FEWA, now I should say Etihad WA.
Yeah, absolutely.
The land was also identified, the land for the site, I should say, land of the site was identified in 2016 or 2018 as well. Why there's a huge time gap between the site identification and the development? Because we are still in early stage, assessment and evaluation.
Yes, there was an initial site identified in 2016 for this for a utility scale project with FEWA, which is now EWE. However, this project was in the end, it didn't happen because FEWA went through a restructuring process to now become EWE, move from an authority to a company. Several of its other stakeholders also had a restructuring process. There was probably a change of priorities there that I'm not fully aware of, that I cannot comment on.
Yes, and do we also have a local content policies that may relate to the development of this utility scale project?
Not yet, not yet. We are still studying, as I said before, we're studying the topic of creating a local content policy that would incentivize, indirectly, local setup of manufacturing of companies here.
Yes.
We are looking at the models of Morocco, Saudi Arabia, etc.
Right. And I saw there are 3 remaining questions in both the Q&A box and the chat box. However, I think considering the nature of these questions, it might be a little bit sensitive. So I will leave you to, scrutinize these questions privately and see if you are comfortable with addressing them.
Sure. So there is a question: how many megawatt will be monitored among the 600? I assume you're talking about distributed solar installations, and we intend to monitor all of them. So we have technical standards for monitoring systems for distributed solar installations that we enforce for all the projects that we do. So we intend to have all of these projects monitored, the consumption, the production load profiles. And then which company was the winning bidder in the aggregated solar installation? So we have empaneled an Indian company, EESL. It's an Indian government enterprise. However, as you saw in the presentation, they are still in the phase of utility approvals and submitting proposals. So they have not been contracted. You said there was another question?
In the Q&A box, but it's not very related to our topic today. They're asking if RAK is considering other renewable energy options, for example, like water.
Yes. So we are studying, in fact, and we have studied some of these options also. Things like pump storage in our mountains. Things like floating solar installations, geothermal energy. We are in various stages of studying all these options. However, for sure, the priority is solar. In this region, with the kind of solar energy resources we have, it would be a crime not to prioritize solar.
And the last question, following up your mention to the floating solar projects, have we installed any test bed, or it's in a very early stage of feasibility study?
Some feasibility studies are complete, and we are monitoring test beds that have been installed by other contractors in Dubai. And there is one test pilot installation that has been proposed in Ras Al Khaimah, but not installed.
Great. And thank you so much, Akshay, for joining us. I really appreciate your time and your presentation. It was a good one.